Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone around the world, to today's special InsurTech event. My name is Richard Satcher. I'm a Director of FinTech Global, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Digital Insurance and CX Tech Forum. We're still virtual. We'll be meeting you soon at other events during the year, but today we have over 1,000 delegates and some fantastic speakers and sponsors helping us today to address a topic that is key to the industry. We're talking about something that is affecting all insurance companies. We're all aware that the pandemic has had huge impact in terms of the number, the volume of people using online interfaces for insurance, and that has resulted in a huge rise in customer expectations. It's no longer good enough to be okay. You have to be pursuing best practice. That's created operational and CX challenges for everybody. So today, with over 1,000 delegates, over 400 of whom are executives and decision makers at insurance companies, we are going through an action-packed agenda with some fantastic distinguished expert speakers. We'll be addressing the key trends, the challenges, the innovations, and the solutions. So please do make the most of this afternoon. It is a work event, but you are allowed cake and wine if you have access to any. And rather than spending any more time introducing other factors, I'd just like to say, please do make the most of the app to connect with people. It's proven to be very successful for our previous events. And please do go and look at the sponsor pages to see what's happening at the leading edge of this industry. You'll be surprised. There'll be lots of things there that will show you and make sure you've got the finger on the pulse of what's happening in the industry. And there will be solutions that are very useful to the challenges that your organization may be facing. And if that's not the case, well, it's also very useful to know what is it that your competitors are doing to meet the challenges of today. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over in a moment to Melissa Collett, who will be chairing the first panel. I can think of no better way to start than to give the insurance leaders' perspectives. So we have some distinguished panelists who Melissa will introduce. Many of you will already know Melissa. Melissa is the Professional Standards Director at the Chartered Insurance Institute. We're delighted to have you here, Melissa. You're very well regarded as a thought leader on industry standards and probably one of the industry's most highly regarded influencers. So it's my pleasure, Melissa, to hand over to you to introduce yourself and your panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, and welcome everyone to this keynote panel session, The Insurance Leader's Perspective. I am delighted to be hosting this session today, and we have some very distinguished panelists with us, which I would like to introduce to you. In fact, what I'm going to do is get them to introduce themselves to you. So I'm going to be starting with Tim Smith. Tim, would you like to say hello?
Hi, everyone, and thank you for the invitation, the opportunity to speak. So, Tim Smith, I'm the CEO of a business called UK General, which deals in delegation of personal line schemes, and I also am Chief Executive of RCH Group, which is a commercial MGA as well. So 2 MGA groups based in the UK.
Thank you, Tim. Next, we're going to turn to Taran Kohli.
Thanks, Melissa. Look forward to this event. I'm Taran Kohli. I'm Managing Director and Head of New Propositions at Swiss Re, the global reinsurer.
Thank you, Taran. And finally, last but not least, Bhaskar Kalita.
Hello, everyone. This is Bhaskar Kalita. I'm the Head of Financial Services and Insurance Sector at Quantify. We are a category-defining AI-first digital engineering firm focused on solving problems at the heart of the business. Excited to be here.
Well, welcome again. And I'm really excited about this first panel with our insurance leaders. And I wanted to really kick off with a question about, having got all of you together, I'd like to know and hear from you, what are the issues at the top of the agenda for CEOs and COOs like you at successful insurance firms. Can you share with us the issues at the top of your and others' agenda?
Thanks, Melissa. I'll take that first. But yes, it's quite a challenging question in itself. There is an ever-growing list. And if we had all afternoon, I'm sure we wouldn't, between the three of us, even exhaust that. But if I was to pick out two or three that are sort of at the forefront of my mind, I think the first thing, and really this is not just me, but I think the whole industry, is that we have to use what we have at our fingertips to deliver much better value and product to customers. I think this is a big bugbear of mine, is that when I look at other industries, insurance still lags technologies that's used in banking, travel, retail, where the benefit of using that technology is passed on to the customer. So that's one side of it, is price and being able to operate effectively. And the second bit of that, I guess, is using the insights that we get from the data to make products that are better for our customers, rather than say, well, this is what we've got, this is what you're going to buy. Rather understand the needs of our customers by using technology and data better to deliver a better product to them. So that would be the first thing, and takes up a lot of our time to think about how we can continue to improve that. The second, for me, more specific to our business, I guess, would be how we use data within our two businesses, and how we want just that one version of the truth. So still having a business with any form of legacy at the moment means that data is all around the business in different formats and doesn't necessarily always talk to each other. So that's a big piece of work that we've been undertaking over the last couple of years to make sure that we have that one version of the truth. And I think that then goes into all sorts of areas: operational efficiency, customer service, less rekeying issues and human error. So that's something that will continue to go at a pace, but is a big investment for us. And again, working with our suppliers to make sure that they can work with us to deliver that same one version of the truth. And I guess lastly for me is a regulatory driven thing, but something that's very appropriate for our industry, which is around pricing practices. Going hand in hand with giving value to customers. It's very important that obviously those customers have a very fair experience through our industry. And we welcomed obviously the legislation that came in towards the end of last year and obviously into this year. And that's something, as we watch it unfold and how that changes, particularly the actual end price that the consumer pays, as well as something we're keeping a very close eye on. So that's my top three. I'll skip the next 25 items, but I'm sure my colleagues here will have similar long lists.
Thank you, Tim, for sharing those insights with us. I'd like to hear from Taran next.
Yeah, so I guess it's a very relevant question, especially in today's times. When we are still going through pandemic, which has been there now for more than 2 years. So I guess from a reinsurer's perspective, COVID has been a big thing for us, and like other reinsurers, we played our role, to be the shock absorber for the society. And as we move forward, I think it's around how are we able to better predict risks? How are we able to better manage risks? And in that perspective, the digitization is going to play increasing role by leveraging new emerging technologies. And a key for that will be, how do we shift our focus or continue to add incremental focus, not only on a risk transfer, but also on the risk solutions, by leveraging the technology to be able to generate more risk insights. So clearly, an interesting times for the insurance industry ahead.
Thank you, Taran. And Bhaskar, what are your thoughts around this question?
Sure. We, as part of our organization, we talk to a lot of CEOs of insurance carriers, and I think the points that Tarun and Tim just made are all relevant. We hear it a lot. One thing that I want to call out here is the need for knowing your customers better. That's becoming extremely prevalent. The customer demography is changing rapidly. Behaviors are changing rapidly. These behaviors are driven by not just the insurance industry. These behaviors are driven by, other industries where, a Gen Y or a Gen Z operates, like an Amazons of the world, the Robinhoods of the world, where you want faster access to data, faster access to making changes. So the customer behaviors are changing. So for the C-suite, knowing your customer behavior is extremely important. And then how do you hyper personalize your products? Think about creating offerings that address a particular individual rather than looking at categories. I think that's extremely important. And to that point, what Tim mentioned, the use of data, use of existing data that's already resides within the carrier, plus all the third-party data that you can bring in and create that profile or the customer persona is becoming extremely important. Number two, I would say, from, covering losses to risk protection. That's another key aspect of the business where you would like to, provide a lot of various services upfront. You want to protect losses rather than covering losses. So that's the number two aspects. And then if I think about COOs who runs the operations for them, how do you drive efficiency gain measures? Combined ratios continue to rise. There are various kinds of losses coming in. How do you, reduce cost in your business processes by looking at technology? We, as part of our firm, we have been working with a lot of carriers at this moment to, simplify claims processes, simplify underwriting processes. So that's another initiative where you look at technology. And technology is ever changing, right? You look at technology and start looking at your core processes. How do you can bring, more efficiencies to the processes? So for me, those are the three key aspects here, Melissa.
Thank you, Bhaskar. And I want to come back to that point you made about hyper-personalization. I think that's a really interesting area. But before we do that, I wanted to reflect on something Taran said earlier. We were coming out of 2 years of a pandemic, and clearly that accelerated our need to digitalize. Do you think, asking across the panel, do you think traditional insurers have been digitalizing fast enough?
So I can start that. I guess digitization can mean different things to different people. The pace of all the industries around the digital has been rising very fast, and I think for the insurance industry, that urgency is clearly understood. My take is, we don't need digital strategy for the business. What we need is a refreshed business strategy for a digital world. And both the approaches are, very, very different. The first one is around the digitizing our core, around modernizing our factory through automation, making the customer experience seamless. Someone mentioned the Amazon-like experience. Clearly, all of these things in today's digital world are a given. I think what will set us apart, how we transform ourselves, to a digital business is a refreshed business strategy in a digital world, which clearly majors on, striking new partnerships, which majors on having access to the right ecosystem players, and therefore coming up with, new ways to monetize or new business models that can spearhead growth. So I think that's where I see quite a shift in the industry in coming weeks and months.
I think, Taran, if I could jump in there as well, I think there's a lot of fighting talk. People saying that they're doing a lot more than they're actually proving in practice. And I think maybe for some of the larger companies like Swiss Re, that's probably easier for them to deliver and divert the resource needed to cross that divide and create a digital business. So I'm seeing a lot of very positive talk and people embracing the need to do things. But when it comes to the practice, the actual transaction, I'm still finding that, particularly in the supply chain, we're talking about claims. People, we outsource a lot of our claims work, and the majority of that still is quite clunky in terms of how we do that. And that's even with some of the world's largest claims outsource companies. We're still not really seeing that full integration into the front end of the business. So joining the distribution, the underwriting, the reserving, the claims servicing, I still think has got a fair way to go. So personally, I think there needs to be further progress. And you're right, the last 2 years have been very good to get people very focused on this. And certainly some of the aspects have moved on quite a way. But I think I can't help but compare ourselves to other industries and feel that we're still lagging and need to do more. And I go back to my value point. I think the digitization of what we do has to take out frictional cost we spend as an industry, probably 35-40% of the premium pound to deliver a product to the end consumer. Now, there's some volatility in our business, of course. We're there to ensure the unexpected and the unforeseen loss, but we have to do better to be able to drive that cost down if we're going to be, for the long term, competing for that customer pound. So I certainly see there's a great deal to do on claims. I think also this insight around which Bhaskar mentioned earlier on, that insight and personalization of products. Again, I think there's some great initiatives out there, but as we continue to take the data of what we know about customers, delivering something that's more appropriate and suitable for their needs and fair and all of the things that regulators push us to do is hugely important as well.
Well, we managed to get that word Amazon in the first few minutes of our session, which is no surprise. But I was interested in taking a bit more of a look into some of the comments that were made just now about clunky claims experiences. And I'd love to hear a bit about examples of anyone's recent experience that are examples of good practice in this space rather than clunky.
Sure. I can take a shot at it, Melissa, from our own experience. We operate, especially from an insurance standpoint, we serve, different lines of businesses, but there are certain lines of businesses where it's extremely paper heavy, where when you look at proof of losses from various documents coming in, right from the FNOL process all the way where an adjuster or a specialist looks at a particular claim, it's extremely heavy, clunky, as we're referring to it, where some information gets in, some are lost. With the limited amount of information that's available, an adjudication happens, and also it takes time. SLAs are longer, and that causes 2-3 things. Number one, obviously, customer experience. For a particular claimant, after he or she has filed the proof of loss, it takes a lot of time for them even to know what's the status of a claim. So that's number one. Number two, lack of proper information or all the information available, because you want to, just collect those which have been traditionally collected to, adjudicate. And number three, you're prone to errors. We have seen cases where error rates during claim adjudications are through the roof. You're talking about, 15-20% error rates. In this process, how do you simplify, and especially all the work that we have been doing has been around AI first digital engineering, where you use the data that's available, use modern tech like AI, bring data in using document AI, use other niche technologies like enterprise knowledge graphs, etc., to give an experience to your specialist where a claim comes pre-adjudicated. And then they're not making the decision, but they're telling or providing an assist to you in terms of what needs to be done. And then obviously the life of a specialist or an adjuster simplifies, where he or she can, get all the information that's needed, and then can adjudicate the claim fairly and faster, right? So these are certain examples, and these kind of transformative engagements have been going on across various lines of business. I spoke about one of the niche lines. There are other lines, like especially commercials, where we are seeing a huge trend where this entire process is getting simplified and digitized.
So you mentioned the word AI.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any examples of companies using AI really effectively?
Yeah, there are a lot of them. We work with a few at this moment. If you look at the North American market primarily, we are dealing with some of the big ones. Liberty Mutual is one of them, where where an extensive effort has gone in terms of setting up data science practices, looking at how AI can not only give you the right parameters that are needed to simplify risks or identify risks better, but also change business processes. The second one, Aflac, that's another big carrier in the market who does a lot of things using AI. So there are a lot of examples out there from a North American market standpoint. Yeah.
And are traditional insurers achieving, the classic example that we've all heard about Lemonade paying a claim within 30 seconds. I think that's the fastest claim paid on record. Is that happening in the traditional space?
Not yet. Yes, Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that actually a problem that needed solving for Lemonade? Does it matter if it's 30 seconds, 30 minutes, 1 hour, 1 day? I think there's a huge level of improvement in the industry that's required from probably what is the average payment of claims. And that's a headline grabbing thing. But Lemonade, I'm not close enough to the business from what I understand that the overall combined ratio is not where you would want to be for a long-term sustainable business. So we have challenges obviously around that claims fulfillment piece, but also giving a return to our capital providers. So I don't think it's as straightforward as that. I think the whole industry just needs to improve, not necessarily feel that they have to pay every claim in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But we talked about Amazon earlier. Someone brought up Amazon, and clearly, when you order something on Amazon, you get it. You could get it within the day. Mm-hmm. So and every conference always comes. The question is, will Amazon take over insurance and then give the incumbents quite a challenge competitively if they can deliver that kind of underwriting and claims that quickly?
Yeah. So, hyper-personalization is becoming a key aspect here where you need to know your customers' needs. Obviously, the big techs are making a lot of move. Amazon, you mentioned about, I spoke about Amazon. That's another big tech focused on solving insurance problems. They can also become a carrier. Tesla, for example, started their own insurance in a few states along with their electric cars. So there's a lot of movement going on with tech firms, original equipment manufacturers going in and also selling insurance coverages, primarily because they know their customers better. They have a big database of customers, know their behaviors, etc. Now, to your question, can they replace the traditional carriers? I think there is a long way to go. Traditional carriers have a large role to play in this market, especially because of their access to the broader market. You have the network of agents, brokers available in the market who know the industry really well and the type of coverages that needs to be provided. So the need of the hour for me, I feel, is for big techs and traditional carriers to come together and look at how can you protect risks, number one, and then make lives of customers easy.
I guess just to build on Bhaskar's point, I think that's where I see the traditional insurers, reinsurers going, which is striking the right partnerships to get that Amazon-like experience. So just to kind of give a few examples from Swiss Re's perspective, over the last 6-7 months, we announced a strategic partnership with the radar satellite-based flood monitoring provider IC, so that we can advance flood risk management, we can assist disaster response, we can expedite claims payment globally. Recently, we announced a partnership with Veoneer, to further improve assessment and enhance development of ADAS technology. Partnered with the Chinese tech giant Baidu to advance the ecosystem of autonomous driving with, again, risk expertise and insurance proposition. So numerous examples, that I can quote over the last kind of 6-7 months. But I think that's the trick in today's world. You see a rapid rise of insurtechs. You see a rapid rise of tech giants getting into the insurance vertical, and therefore, for the traditional organizations, it is to exercise the muscle where they can strike the right partnerships, co-develop products, and therefore give the end customers, whether that's a B2B business or a B2B2C business, that kind of a seamless experience that people now believe and now get in a consumerized world.
Thank you. And I just wanted to pause at this juncture to say we are going to be taking questions during this session from you, the audience. We'd love to hear from you. We have received some questions that are popping up now, which I'm going to put to the panelists. If you have a question you'd like to put to any of the panelists or all, please indicate, and we'll try and get those in before our panel time is up. So let me put this audience question. How is the shift? This is a good one. How is the shift towards hybrid working impacting the speed of digitalization? Who wants to take that one?
I can take a shot at it. I mean, we've been working with a lot of carriers in the last 18 months. The initial few months were not that easy, right? Where if you look at when the whole shift started in terms of people going offline, if I may use that term. When I say offline, it's working remote, right? It was not easy. It was a new way of working, getting used to technology, getting used to virtual conferences, meetings, etc. It took a little bit of time, right? So that obviously, coincided with all the different things that we saw at the start of the pandemic. But as things settle down, I personally believe that more and more carriers and their staff have got used to this. In fact, there are some leading carriers who have now decided to go completely remote or 70% remote, right? So there are a lot of announcements being made right now. If nationwide probably has already shut down a bunch of offices across the country in United States to focus on only a few locations, and then rest all remote. So if you look at all the leading indicators at this moment, hybrid is working. You obviously cannot eliminate the benefits of human interactions. I do believe that gradually, as we move from pandemic to an endemic, we'll probably get into a mode where people come to offices twice a week, or maybe a week in a quarter, spend time, rejuvenate, focus on personal interactions, and then go remote and do your stuff. So I think that's the mode where we will go into. There is one more thing I want to add. We have seen a big jump in productivity, especially in the tech world. We've seen a huge jump in productivity after this whole remote shift that has happened in the last 18 months. Tim, Tarun, I'd love to get your opinions as well.
I was actually really pleasantly surprised that no one predicted the fact that we would all suddenly have to ask our entire workforce to work from home. We have call centers where we had to relocate, and big shout out to our technology guys. They made it look very easy, and I'm sure it absolutely wasn't, but they were able to adopt the technologies that we already had in the business and make sure that the business could function as normal. And actually, when I look across the industry, I was really pleasantly surprised at how no one saw this coming, but actually how well the industry itself coped. I think it's important now, hybrid being the accent. I think that human interaction, working with colleagues. I don't see us going back to 5 days a week in the office anytime in the near future, but it is important to keep that sort of human touch. Working with your colleagues, it's good for your mental health, and just being stuck at home 5 days a week, I think all of us would find that to be a challenge. It certainly has accelerated, I think, in some areas, productivity, but we have to, again, be very careful at what cost. I think people feel quite differently working from home than they might do if they were going into the office, where they can walk away, switch off, do some leisure activities in the evening. It's too easy for that to bleed across now. So I think we have to be very aware that we're not building up a different problem for the future, where people's mental health is suffering, and ultimately people become dissatisfied with their working environment because they're not getting what they used to get out of it. And I think the most important thing about our industry is attracting talent and working with people and building a career. And that's something that genuinely I think is one of the biggest changes I've seen in my working career. I'm old enough to join the industry when the bar was pretty low, which is probably quite fortunate for me. But I think now we're bringing in some really talented individuals, and working with those individuals to bring their knowledge into the industry and making sure that we can provide a safe working environment is really, really important to me.
I will just add.
Before you pop in, Tarun, I'm most conscious of time. We've got some questions pouring in from our audience, so I thought I would try and get as many of these over to you guys as I can. So Somebody is asking and kind of responding to Tim's point about Lemonade, poo-pooing that a little bit, that claims experience, and saying, well, hang on, what's stopping the big players from modernizing their claims experience? Surely slicker claims, equals a better customer experience. So
I think that's what I said. I think that the timing element, 30 seconds or whatever, is a little bit of a red herring. I think the industry definitely needs to improve its claim settlement. I think if you look at, and it's probably something we should all be very transparent about. What's your average time to settle a claim? So I absolutely agree with that question. No issues with us getting that better.
To address that specific question, what is stopping traditional carriers from providing the same experience? I would say it's the legacy baggage. I think that's an important aspect where you already have an infrastructure set up to process claims. It's organizational change management is not easy, right? It's easier for an insurtech, Lemonade in this example, to come up, build a new infrastructure, and provide something which is better, faster. But for an existing traditional carrier looking at their existing infrastructure, implementing something new, and also make sure their existing staff, their ecosystem is not disturbed that much is also important. So making that change or moving in that direction, it takes time. Lot of carriers are making those moves, but it will not be as fast as an insurtech or a new player in the market.
That's a good point there, and we've got a few questions coming in about the regulatory landscape and how that affects insurtechs, starting up, and really I'll try and sort of combine these ones. But it's how do you get the balance between these quick and slick processes that we all seem to want and meeting strict regulatory requirements, which aren't always very smooth. So what are your thoughts on that?
I don't want to monopolize, but I'm quite familiar with some of the changes they've brought in recently. And I think the one that's is the barriers to entry for a small business, a technology business, to enter the insurance market is going to be the regulators changing stance towards authorized representatives. And the expectation that in a short period of time that every business will have to be fully regulated. Now, I know from my own experiences with a regulator, they also then need to speed up their own approvals process if we are to get these new entrants into the market. Now, we are all for solid regulation that makes sure the customer is protected and the firms are properly capitalized to do the business. But the regulator has to work with us to make that process much quicker. There's not many people I'm hearing of can get a business regulated in less than 6 to 9 months, which is a huge barrier to entry. There's a long runway of capital to burn before getting to that. So I think, a lot of what the regulator is doing is very positive towards customer protection, but we also have to embrace how we bring these new technologies into the market as well. So that probably points to more partnerships, as I think Taryn pointed out earlier on. It's working with other parties to get that solution in a more expedited fashion.
Thanks, Tim. And does anyone else want to come in on this? Or I've got another question, slightly different standpoint here, is about the next generation of customers. What are their top priorities? So if you're looking at the younger generation, what are they looking for? And I guess the question that comes from that is, are our current companies catering for that?
Yeah, I can start with that. I think clearly, there is a choice of channels, right? The younger generation, spend to go about in their day to fulfill their needs, everything on an app, and therefore, if you don't have a product on an app which is seamless, which has the right UI, clearly that's not going to work, for the younger generation. I think also the enhancements that we need to make to those products, which essentially is an iterative releases, thousands of releases that need to happen at very quick intervals. I think what it means for the traditional organizations to be able to cater to those is a change of mindset. I guess, for the digitization, the technological barriers are easier to overcome than the mindset shifts that is needed to support the digital transformation. And that's where we need to probably zoom in. How do we cultivate in the organization a culture of agility, a culture of curiosity, a learning culture that pushes our people to explore the world of possibilities, to be able to conduct, rapid experimentation. And I think that's, if we get that right, then we will be able to cater to the needs of the younger generation.
Yeah, we've backed a couple of firms recently as an underwriter who are focused towards X, Y, Gen Y, Gen Z people, and their methods of distribution are something that we could never replicate. So we have to be able to provide the data, the historic data, the capital, the infrastructure to be able to support them to go and engage with that customer group. And that's a very different mindset to what we're used to. They want to insure different things. They want to pay for them in different ways. Their experience about 12 months policy periods is very different. There's so many different challenges. And I think as providers of product, we have to be very flexible in how we approach that and not just say, well, I'm sorry, our insurance product comes in this particular box and this is how you have to accept it. We have to understand that this generation have a different way of insuring their items. And for a lot of them, actually, I think as Taryn was explaining, it's almost an education process. How does insurance work? Why is it here? What is it that you're going to get from it, and sort of bring them into that as their life evolves and they insure different things as they become more mature. So it's very different, very interesting for an old guy like me to pick up on as well. So.
Flexibility will be extremely important, right? How do you customize your products? I mean, there are some stats that I read recently where the next generation may not like to own a car or buy a home. So your key products and the way you handle those products will change. So, covering newer risks, as Tim called out, will be extremely important, and how flexible you make those products will be critical for carriers.
Thanks for that. And you got in that point again about hyper personalization. And I know my own son is starting to ride a moped, and he's saying, why do I have to, why are there so few options how to pay for this moped insurance? Why are there so few types of insurance, in terms of what I'm going to use it for? And I'm sitting there as wearing my mom's hat, and it's very difficult to answer those questions and why there isn't more choice. But I want to sort of end sort of related topic of talent and new talent, attracting that new talent, and going back to that point earlier about hybrid working is the future and going into the office less. And how do you going back to Taryn's point as well about you changing the mindset, the culture of business, how do you actually get across the culture and the mindset of a business when you're bringing in new talent and you're doing that remotely or in a very limited hybrid basis? How do you go about doing that and creating that getting across the culture of a business to someone who's just walked through a virtual door?
Not easy, Melissa. I'll just say it's not easy, especially for my firm and we in the consulting world where talent is extremely critical. It's been a big challenge. We call it the era of great resignation, where we are seeing people moving from one job to another, and bringing somebody new and including them or making them part of the working culture is very difficult. So we have thought about various innovative mechanisms where employee engagement processes are increasing. How do you make this particular sector attractive to a new talent? Talking about various things that you can do about it. And insurance doesn't come to anybody's mind first when you talk about a sector, right? It's always something that's an afterthought, right? So there are various different techniques that we have tried, but it's not been an easy ride. I'll look for suggestions from Tarun and Tim here.
To me, it's about increasing communication. We have to be able to tell stories about what's going on in the business. And let's face it, even when people return into the office 5 days a week, you could be in an environment where you don't really know what's going on. You can see there's lots of other people milling around looking very busy, drinking coffee, but do you really know what's going on in your business, what challenges you're facing and what wins you're having? So I think, all of us have, and certainly there's room for improvement, and I would be the first to put my hand up, is that we need to continue to communicate about what's going on. So whilst people are sitting at home 2 or 3 days a week, is that they feel involved in what's happening in the business. We're sharing more, and that's a communication piece.
I would quickly add 2 points. I think to attract
And we've
the
got
talent.
2 minutes left, Karen. So just,
Yep.
yep. And I need
Very
a minute
quickly.
to wrap up.
So I think people want to join the organizations that are doing the right thing for the society as well, that are doing the right thing for the planet. And that's why you see a lot of focus on, sustainability, a lot of focus on climate. And also, the policies has to be right. So if you necessitate coming to the office 5 days a week, you will clearly lose out on the talent. So how do we make sure that the policies are in sync with the time? Over to you, Melissa.
Thank you for keeping that succinct, and thank you all for coming and answering that final point about talent. I think it's ever so important. And I just wanted to thank all of you for a really engaging dialogue. We didn't even get to all those audience questions. They were just pouring in. So thank you to the audience for that as well. And I would just like to say thank you on behalf of the Chartered Insurance Institute. We are the professional body for the insurance sector. And we certainly feel that talent and all these issues we've discussed today are ever so important. And I just wanted to wish you a really great afternoon at the rest of the conference.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you for having us. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.